Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. I'm Trent Christensen, and this is KMMU. KMMU and Main Street Media stream live wherever you enjoy your streaming. We broadcast live on YouTube, Rumble, X, and on our website, kmmu.org. Now please join our host, John Twitchell. This is Let's Talk Utah's Talk with John.
KMMU, this is Talk with John here on Main Street Media, Utah. Looking forward to being with you for the next roughly, I'd say about 2 hours. I'll be introducing my current guest to the audience here momentarily. But first, I'm going to start out with the show prayer and the show mantra. Then I'll introduce him, and then we'll bring him live, and then we will be having another guest join us at about 5:15. It's a voice you probably recognize, especially if you got the show intro. All right, folks, this is Talk with John on Main Street Media, Utah. Now, real quickly, you can catch us on our different platforms that we're on the video and audio side, not just on kmmu.org, but also you can go to we have Twitter, we have X, we have Rumble, and we have YouTube. So feel free to go to any one of those channels and you can watch this show again. So real quickly, let me give out the show prayer and the show mantra. Now, folks, it's the prayer of my heart when it comes to doing this show. It's not exactly how I live my life. In fact, probably a hypocrite on some level when you say I do this, but it's still the prayer of my heart. It's what I try to be. It's the best of what I try to be. I hope my show is a gift back to my forefathers, the founding fathers, and may it be an acceptable token to our Father above. Then the show mantra: where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Where the Spirit of Christ is, there will be liberty. And the greater the Spirit of Christ, the greater liberty will be. Now, I want to introduce my guest to all of you. Let's bring him on, Jason Preston. Now, folks, you all know him. Y'all love him. Jason Preston ran for Congress. Now is over We Are the People Utah, getting out the truth. My little statement of where there is liberty, there's the Spirit of Christ. That whole mantra, I would say, applies to Jason. That's what Jason, from the first time that I met him, wanted to find truth. That was his goal. And so, Jason, I greatly respect you. Thank you for joining me here today. Thank you for lowering yourself down to join Talk with John.
No, John, you've always been relentless. You're one that's always been there and very consistent, and I appreciate your consistency in standing up for truth and freedom.
Well, we're going to have the difficult part of our conversation to begin with. We're going to have Trent Christensen join us at about 5:15 or so. But I want to start this off, this first hour. I want to call it about, I want to talk to you about the deep state coming after you. And also satanic ritual abuse. That is something that you've been doing. I think it's, I'll get into explaining that a little bit more. But Jason, you're doing a fight, in my opinion, that has to be done. And the difficult thing with it is it's hard to know the real truth because it is so hidden. Satan wants to hide it. Satan doesn't want us to have liberty. Satan wants us to, quote unquote, think we're free, but he definitely doesn't want us to have liberty. In my opinion, what is liberty? Aren't those interchangeable? And I don't think they exactly are. Liberty is the responsibility side, the freedom side, and the moral side of freedom. Just because I'm free to do a thing doesn't mean I should do a thing. Just because I'm free to go eat chocolate, just because I'm free to eat a 1 pound bar of chocolate every hour just because I have the freedom to do it doesn't mean I should do it. In fact, eventually that will work against me in many ways and take away my liberty. So, Jason, that's kind of where I wanted to start this with is in your fight for liberty. Now, I think Dwayne has something loaded up. I want to touch on Spencer Cox. I think that's when a lot of people got to know you outside of the Republican convention. Um, that's kind of when you went. I would say you blew up on social media to some extent, your interaction with Spencer Cox. But I think that also is a great defining piece to me. This is Jason Preston in many ways. In a short synopsis, it shows who he is. So I'm going to let you kind of make a quick comment and then let's play that video. And I'm going to have Dwayne probably stop it in a spot or two just to give you my thoughts when I saw this. But Jason, thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah. No, John, I appreciate you and appreciate your audience and, everything you guys are all doing to wake people up because, there's a lot of corruption in the state. The state is under attack. We talk about Utah being ground zero, and those who understand how central Utah is to all the, global corruption that's coming. And I think it's actually some of the biblical stuff. And I think one of the reasons we have so much corruption in the state is because they've done such a good job controlling the media and controlling the narrative. And so you have a very good, trusting population who trusts authority, trusts the media, trusts the news, and trusts that all is well in Zion. And as a result, it's the perfect climate for corruption to fester. And that corruption has festered to a point that I think those who have eyes to see are starting to realize that this state is in big trouble.
And I think we will go down that rabbit hole a little bit more as we chat. But this, I think, is a great interaction of the people that are in power not wanting to have people like you, Jason. So let's play that. Dwayne. Go ahead and play it when you're ready, Dwayne.
Tell me your thoughts on the smart cities that you guys are working on.
What smart city?
Smart city, yeah.
I don't know what smart city.
Come join us for Sandbag when you're pointing out.
It's not a smart city. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, we're going.
Sure. Look, gee, look. I know what you're trying to do. I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know?
There's no such thing as a smart city.
You have it on your
So
website.
stop making up stuff,
Why do you
okay?
have it?
To try to make me look bad. You're really good at this. You make up shit and then you try to make us
It's on
look
your
bad.
own website.
Okay?
How about
I don't have a website about this.
Why don't you have a
okay?
conversation about it?
Because you don't like to have real conversation.
I'm right here asking for a
All right, let's pause it right there.
Let's
pause it right there. So I find this interaction very interesting. So it's not just Spencer, it's the people that surround him. So Jason and Spencer were shaking hands. Jason brought something up, started talking about the 15-minute cities, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And then the next thing that happens is all of a sudden you see Spencer Cox's people start diving in. A guy comes in, tries to separate Jason and Spencer, but Spencer wants this interaction. He doesn't want to let it go. I mean, he very much wants to be a part of it. But it was another thing that I find that's interesting is the people that surround people of power. They get their smartphones and put it in there, so they covering up where this is being recorded. I just go, to me, this is the beginning. It gets into a little more in depth, and I think there's another very specific part of this interaction that really goes to show, I think, what power, those people that are in power don't want to be questioned, don't want real questions asked to them, because there's no way in the world that Spencer Cox, when he has his town hall meetings or whatever, when they're done on KUED or whatever it may be, they don't want to have someone like Jason Preston in the audience asking questions. They don't want to have someone like Talk with John in that audience. But this just goes to show what they're willing to do. Jason, if you want to give a couple thoughts before we continue to let that play.
No, you can continue it playing.
Okay. All right. Dwayne, let's continue, and we'll play it all the way through.
That there's no such thing as a smart city. We're developing a new piece of land for the state, okay? That's what we're doing. They have open meetings. You're welcome to show up and talk to them. It's an independent commission. There's all kinds of people working on it, all kinds of elected officials. There's no, you like to make up these conspiracies. It's great for you. I know it's good for your brand. I hope it works for you.
See him hitting your chest. That's funny.
Okay? So good luck, okay? The world. Is that a chest? I've never even heard about it. I've never even heard about it before.
You probably never read 1984 either.
I read 1984.
Let the governor speak. The governor can speak.
We gotta go.
Sorry, you're trying to recon.
I've read 1984 3 times.
You should read it again because you're bringing it to the top. You're bringing it to the top. Come on, I want you to have a conversation. Oh, laugh. Hey, Spencer, why don't you come on the show? Have a conversation. Come on the show, Spencer.
Okay, so one of the part of this interaction that just it in some ways cracks me up the most, but kinds to go to show you what individuals like Spencer Cox, those that are in power, how they really are. I mean, in my opinion, he was pretty much on full display right here. When he takes his fist and taps you in the chest, had you done the exact same thing at that moment, you probably would have had the highway patrol step in and probably would have put you in cuffs. Yeah. Now, the bottom line is, Jason, there's a huge size difference between the two of you. And so, I mean, I could tell that you're like, I mean, there was no worry on Jason Preston's side that Spencer Cox is going to do anything. Plus, he's out in public, so there's only so much he can get away with. But him doing that is a very big sign of him trying to establish, that's someone that's trying to establish not just dominance, but physical dominance over someone and trying to exhort their power and show their power and their strength. And to me, that is one of the most telling moments I have ever seen with Spencer Cox, Mr. Disagree Better.
Yeah.
So, Jason, I would love to know, and real quickly, we don't have it in this. Thank you, Dwayne. We don't have it in this clip. It's not in this clip where he actually talks about, if you go to Jason's website, and Jason, you may know where it is better on your website, it shows, you have it clipped. So he actually talks about those 15-minute cities. And I want to say it was him talking about it before you brought it up. Yeah, and he said 15-minute cities.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to be quiet for a few minutes and let you talk.
No, I think, that there's so many things that should really sound the alarm for, citizens and people in the state, regardless of your ideologies. I mean, the fact of the matter is, yes, there's videos him talking about building smart cities and making Utah the first smart state. There's conversations. There's there's documentation with the World Economic Forum working with Utah talking about building these smart cities. And the fact that he lied about it. I didn't. I think the thing that surprised me is, I expected him to. I could. When I walked into the interaction with him, I'd never talked to him before. It's my first time talking to him. I shook his hand politely, and you heard, I asked him, tell me about these smart cities. I was expecting him to have, and because what I was looking for is him to come on the show and talk about it. And I thought it was a small chance he'd come on the show, but at least ask him, because it's a big concern. It's happening. No one's talking about it. But what I could not predict is him flipping out like that and lying. Why? And that's where I think people should ask, because especially when you see the videos of him actually talking about it, why lie? Like, why lie? Like, why? if there's nothing concerning, if you're not doing anything under the surface that people shouldn't be concerned about, why lie?
Absolutely.
Like the answer should be, oh yeah, it's phenomenal. Like we're bringing all this tech stuff and it's going to be awesome and it's going to be this great thing for Utah. Why get upset? Why get in my face? Why start swearing? Why lose control of yourself? Why, when I ask him about the World Economic Forum, say he's never heard of the World Economic Forum? This guy's a governor and he's never heard of Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, where he's got his head in this. I mean, even though I know obviously he does know who he is, like I said, they're collaborating on the smart city. There's documentation on that. So I think the thing people should ask is, well, why is it okay when, again, who am I? Nobody. I'm a citizen. This is he is my governor. He's on my payroll.
Right.
And he works for me. He works for you. He works for the listeners. What audacity does he have when one of his citizens who puts him in office comes and asks him politely a question about a concern, for him to flip out and swear and start acting like an animal? I mean, and to me, that wasn't, so that's the first red flag. Why lie? Why get aggressive? Why start swearing? The other thing is the control that the Utah elite have over the media. So about within 2 days of that interaction, you would think the media would say, hey, this was a little bit weird. Why did the governor do this? That you think maybe they'd say, do we have smart cities? It's there. You can go research it. Like it was right on Google Map, the point, a 15-minute city, like it's all there. So why wouldn't the media, because again, the purpose of the First Amendment is for a media to hold the government accountable.
Yeah.
But yet in Utah and in so much of the media that's been, co-opted across the country, you have the media that ends up being lapdogs for the establishment. And so what happens 2 days later, I get a hit piece run on me by, major newspaper in Utah. And the funny thing was,
congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, this is, par for the course. But here's the thing that's interesting is, again, you think the media would understand what happened here and really be trying to dig into him and challenge him.
Right.
But what does the media do? It attacks the citizen. And I'm like, wow, is that America? When a citizen asks a legitimate question about something that's affecting our families and our future, and the politician attacks him, and then they use the media to try to discredit him. That is that's not America, let alone Utah. So, but the sad thing is, in Utah, that stuff people don't.
It's not the way it should be in Utah.
The authority figure is God. The authority, we trust authority. Like whatever authority says, we obey. That is the problem with Utah culture, is we have been programmed to obey and trust authority and leadership. And that's not the way this country was built. This country was built on defiance and holding leaders accountable, not obeying and just trusting them.
Well, I would say that was it's not just it's not just people not questioning authority properly, as Dwayne's putting in the comments. Yeah, we need to question authority, but that was built into the World War II generation of, hey, you trust your leaders, you trust the leaders. They went off to war. They were conditioned. We've been conditioned. Now, we probably in Utah have bought into that conditioning more than many places in the United States.
By far.
But it's also, I would say, on the woke side of things in California, depending on who's telling you the story, they totally will buy it. And I will say in Utah, it goes to show you how much Spencer Cox is part of the establishment, because if that was Phil Lyman, let's say that Phil Lyman had been governor, as Phil Lyman is, had that been a number of other individuals that ran for the position of governor, had that been anyone else, there's a good chance that they would have gone after that governor, especially for the incident. That should have been all over the news. Spencer Cox has an interaction with, and even if they're going to make you look like a dummy, just say some Yahoo. As soon as he put his hands on your chest like that,
appropriate. So it's just wrong.
Boom.
You know,
It should have been all over the
a
place.
servant of the people.
Right.
And that's what we've lost in this state, is servants of the people. And that's the danger of power, is power corrupts. And in Utah, we have politicians at every level that once they get in office, there's this God complex where they really just think they're above the people. And it's sad, because, you know, that is how you lose your liberties, and we are losing them.
And we have too many people that are too trusting. And the bottom line is the lamestream Democrat mainstream media here in the state of Utah, not just in the United States, but here in the state of Utah, is part. And they and folks, well, John, the media isn't like that. No, the media wants power too. I'm going to go to the national level real quick, and this reflects back to Utah. Why is it, with Biden losing his mind? And the big story is, in my opinion, when it comes to Biden, who was using the auto pen, who was really the president. They don't want to look into that. They're saying, oh, Biden, he got cancer and he was starting to lose his mind. All right, let's not pay attention. No, the real story is you, the Democrat mainstream media, were lapdogs feeding us, saying that he was a week before the debate, you had a CNN host say that he was the smartest, best Biden he'd ever seen. It probably was even less than a week. That level of cover up is happening here in Utah, them protecting power. Why do they, well, John, that doesn't make sense why they're protecting power, because the media wants their power too.
Well, actually go look who owns the media. And I think once you understand, especially who owns the media, because it's not hard to look that up. It's a small group of people, and it's that small group of people that run this state.
And there's a small and a little bit bigger group that buys a lot of advertising. So that's the people that are also somewhat in control. Who's buying the advertising? Not just in control of the media, but who's buying the advertising. All right.
You want to be specific who you're talking about there?
What's that?
You want to be specific who you're talking about there?
Well, okay. So
generality.
Okay, so I'll be specific. One of the things that is being a lot of money is spent on in the media is the different pharmaceutical companies buy tons of advertising, especially during the news, when they are trying to give us what's quote unquote happening in our state today.
Sure.
So that's just one facet of the whole system. Of course, they're not going to speak out against the pharmaceutical companies when they buy 10, 15, 20, 30% of the advertising. Of course, they're not going to go against the pharmaceutical companies. They don't want to do that. So I'm just going to use one very specific, easy example to mention. Jason, your thoughts?
No, you're right. I mean, yeah, I have real thoughts on that, and I think pharmaceuticals, but I think Utah is a very, very different power dynamic.
And I would agree. I'm not going to say it's not a different point, but
the big power dynamic here is actually the church. You know, if you really want to understand who runs culture, who owns the culture, you know, politicians, it actually, and I'm a member of the church, and I'm not meant to criticize, not trying to criticize the church, but I'm stating what I'm learning and seeing and observing. And I cannot say that's not a real factor when it actually is, and that's undebatable.
I will also say the the Miller Group, Qualtronics, Ryan, the owner of the Utah Jazz, the two owners of the Utah Jazz, they've got a big piece of this too. I mean,
if you really, and this dovetails in, if you want to really talk about the power structure that runs Utah, there is a very real organized power structure that runs this state, and that is a conversation in and of itself, and ultimately at this point, that's my bigger interest. I'm done with chasing silly politicians that are puppets. I want to go after. I want to attack the root of the corruption. And the politicians are bought, they're paid for, they're put in place. They work for the Gal Millers. SB 54, which neutered the Republican Party, and the grassroots movement was put in place by Scott Anderson, the CEO of Zions Bank, and Gail Miller, and several of our politicians. I mean, there is an organization there. They are very, very organized. Call it secret combinations, call it what you want, but there is a shadow government that runs this state. And to me, I'm done with chopping away at even Spencer Cox. I'm vehemently opposed to him, but he is not the heart of the problem in this state. He is placed there by the heart of the problem in this state because he complies and he goes along with their agenda. He's a puppet.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say continue, please. We're here. I want your thoughts. I'm asking your thoughts.
All right. Well, I mean, look, since we ran for Congress, our whole thing is fighting for the Constitution, fighting for this country, fighting against corruption. And initially we saw a big problem with election integrity. We fought that and still fight it. We saw problems with Cox. We saw, the problems with China and our relations with China. We're more embedded with China than either state. It's documented they're able to influence our legislators more than any other state. We're embedded with the United Nations. The World Economic Forum's writing articles about how we're leading the way with smart cities. I mean, we could go down the list of all the different things of corruption that we found in this state, and it's insane. But I think everyone will realize if when I say this is not a battle of left versus right, this is a spiritual battle of good versus evil, I think everyone agrees with that. I don't think if we could ask your listeners if they could respond, every single one would agree that this is a battle of good and evil. But I think we have some real cognitive dissonance about what that means. I think we know what that means on good. I think we can all agree that the good side of this fight is fighting for light, truth, the principles of Jesus Christ, the literal God that created this world, and the Savior, I think, that redeemed it. I think we can all agree that is the light, that is the good. We're fighting for values. We're fighting for the family. We're fighting for the principles that make us free, which all come from God. Our whole Western civilization was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. That's what we're fighting for. And there is a leader to that fight, and that is our Savior. And I think everyone would agree with that. And I think we can also agree that, the fundamental thing destroying this world right now and our country is Marxism. And I think we can all agree, because it's documented, that Karl Marx was a devout Satanist. And the last paragraph in the Communist Manifesto says, we'll know our work. I should pull it up and read it, but basically communists stand for the overthrow of all existing social conditions. Okay, that's very important. What is it they want? The overthrow of all existing social conditions. They want to burn it all down. Okay, that is Satan's plan, to burn it all down and rebuild like the phoenix in his image. And you see what's going on at the universities. The war on truth, the war on the values of Western civilization is happening. But I think where we tend to be very ignorant, and not just ignorant, but blind, is that there is far more to that dark side of the good and evil than we want to acknowledge. We tend to not give credit to how powerful the other side is, how organized, how real. I think, we see Hollywood, we see the actors doing the satanic symbols, the covering an eye, the secret. What is that secret? We'll talk about that. We see them literally coming out on TV and at concerts performing satanic rituals. We see Epstein Island. We've seen Pizzagate. The trafficking of kids in our backyards. We know what's happening with our politicians. We know there's no politicians who are in longer than 2 terms. They're not compromised. What are they compromised by? Smoking cigarettes, drinking too much alcohol. No, they get involved with dark things. And these are the secret combinations. You look at the United Nations when they have the satanic symbols all over that building, all over. It's covered with satanic symbols. You look at the Olympics, all the satanic stuff at the beginning of the Olympics. Like you start looking at, when you understand satanic symbolism and you start looking at our corporations, you see it in our logos, you see it in their commercials. It is, how about movies? How many movies? Satan is real. The bottom line is this is a battle of light and dark. And just as real as Jesus Christ is, there is a fallen angel who is waging war on his creation. Excuse me. And particularly this nation, which I believe was founded by our Savior, founded by God. It has brought more light and good into this world than any other constitution has ever happened. We know we are coming. Everyone knows, oh, yes, in the last days, 7 years of tribulation. Well, but we don't want to admit that that Satan is organized and that he is leading things and that he is in charge of both political parties, that he is in part of leading the United Nations, the World Economic Forum. He is organized and he is marching forward. Meanwhile, all these Christians have been transformed into cupcake Christians who are not fighting, who have no idea who the enemy is, who are zombies, who even do good deeds, go to church, have their head in the sand. They follow all the commandments, just like the good Pharisees did, but they're blind to the war that has been going on since the dawn of time. This war that Michael and his archangels, that happened before this earth began, was real. There was a real Lucifer, a real enemy, and a real savior. And people fought. There was a real fight. That battle is we're coming to the climax of it. And you would think right now, coming to the climax of that battle, Christians, especially in this state, would have their eyes open to the enemy and his advances on our children, his advances on every aspect of our lives, truth itself, the idea of God, the family, and we would be directly waging war on him, as prophesied in all scriptures the saints would do, and that Michael would do, the archangel, would expose and raise army to overthrow this guy. But yet here we are, especially Utah. If there's one place that should be aware of these things, aware of secret combinations. No, we have been lulled to sleep. And meanwhile, there's a principle of duality. Where there is light, there is darkness. Where there is good, there is bad. Where there is a principle of and the adversary has captured DC a long time ago. Both parties, everyone who thinks this is left versus right. I mean, I'm sorry, the ridiculousness of people unable to see how they're all being played. You know, you talk about the news and the left, such suckers. The right's a bunch of suckers too. I'm sorry. Like everything, hook, line, and sinker, as long as it's from Fox, we just buy it. We don't question but everything the other team does, it's divide and conquer. You want to win a war, put the people against each other. But, you know, he captured DC. He's captured Hollywood. He's captured the cultural heart of our country. And what greater jewel would that enemy of all light have than to capture and be waging war in our backyard? If you believe this is the headquarters of light and truth, to think that the adversary has not set up shop here is completely naive and out of harmony with Scripture itself and truth and the principles of truth. And so the question is, if that is true, if this is a battle of light and dark, why are we not focused on the dark? Why do we? Because we don't want to look at it. Is that the first step?
Jason, that's one of the reasons why. Because people don't want to look at it.
That's right.
They don't dare look at it.
But then, why do we not want to look at the evil in World War III that's on the verge? We don't want to see the potential of evil. We want to pretend all is well. But if you are in a war, the first step is you must know your enemy. And the cupcake Christians have been lulled to sleep. There is no Satan. No, there is no Lucifer. There is no dark. Let's just, it's all about just being obedient Pharisees. And the fact of the matter is, they are waging war on our children in our backyard. And once I came to understand that, none of this other political stuff matters nearly as much. What do you got?
Okay, so Dwayne threw this up for us. This is the satanic symbolism that we have playing off of for the Olympics. This was their Last Supper that they showed.
Yeah. Complete blasphemy. That was only a part of all the satanic stuff.
Yes.
So here's the question. Is this stuff real? And if it's real, are we supposed to just be having our head in the sand, even though we know what is the currency of the devil? What has it always been throughout time? Children. And here we are thinking this is coming up to the great battle, but yet the same wickedness, the same spirits that have been in this world since the dawn of time that have sacrificed children for throughout history. That stuff's not. We know what's happening. It's happening in our backyard.
So I want to talk about. Here's the bottom line. Every day I'm fighting I'm fighting the battle between Satan and following Christ. And let me tell you, it's a lot easier to give in to Satan than it is to follow Christ. And so if that isn't happening, and I know that I'm not the only one that has that happen. I know that I'm not the only individual that, and if it's happening to me, I know it happens to many. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to all.
It does happen to all. We're all human. That's the purpose of life.
I think that there are many who have done a better job fighting the battle and overcoming than I have. Okay.
No, I don't know that I agree with that, but I think we tend to put people on pedestals and think people are much more than they really are. I think we're all very weak humans, all in need of grace.
Well, okay, concurred. Completely concur. We all need grace, but I'd say someone like my father has fought this. My mother and my mother and my father have fought this battle and do much better at it than I do personally. But the bottom line is I completely agree with you. Absolutely, the biggest fight that we have to fight right now is for our children. We have to watch out for our children. And why wouldn't the things of old, the old ways, be done in new ways today? So one person I want to bring up is I want to get your thoughts on Elon Musk. Elon, just kind of what you said, Elon Musk, I'm concerned that guy is the Antichrist. Why? Because he is looking so good right now, but he wants people to put a chip in their brain so they become part of the, so you can have the computer brought right into your brain. Kind of sounds like it might be something along the lines of something that I heard in scripture, especially if they go through the forehead, right? Yeah. But just that idea, I don't want a computer system or something along those lines being between me and God, because I know that will not only put thoughts into my head, it may share all my thoughts. Yeah, that's a concern, but putting thoughts in your head is even worse, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Then also to your statement right now. So I've talked to many people and I've asked them, what is the worst thing that's happening in our nation? Recently, I want to say it was about a month ago, ran into a number of the cast members for The Chosen. It's being recorded right now. I think it's one of the best shows that we have, quote unquote, on TV type thing. And I'm going to say The Sound of Freedom is the most important movie that we've had in years. Why? Because that is bringing up, it starts to broach the level of child trafficking that's happening here in the United States. That is our biggest sin. Our biggest sin. Now, it's not just what's being brought into the fact that there's such a demand for it in the United States that we're bringing over 400, right around 400,000 children, stated 400,000 children into the United States. That goes to show how bad of a problem this is. And frankly, it's been happening here in our own backyard before they were brought in. Now, something that you've been talking a lot about on your show is satanic ritual abuse. To me, that is the pinnacle of the worst thing. Why is it the pinnacle? Because killing your own child is a terrible thing. Abortion is a horrible thing. But the fact that you keep a child alive, you sexually abuse them, and then you ritualistically try to get in partnership with Satan to do it, that is the absolute pinnacle of evil in my mind. And it's happening right here in the state of Utah. And I think it's one of the worst things that we're facing. Now, real quickly, before I let Jason respond, I want to mention real quickly, you are watching and listening on KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We are live on X, YouTube, and Rumble. And also you can go to our website, kmmu.org. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to share or subscribe. Well, subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe and share on your favorite platform about this, especially this show, because I frankly think this is one of the most important shows that I've done. And I'm not the only one that thinks what Jason is doing is one of the most important things. I had Phil Lyman on a couple weeks ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he and I talked about the attack that Jason is under right now from the powers that be. The attack that Jason is being put under right now goes to show you what he's trying to do, and that he's at the tip of the spear trying to get this done. So satanic ritual abuse to me is the pinnacle of the worst thing, because not only are you abusing a child, many times your own child, you're trying to partner with Satan to do it. I mean, I can't think of anything worse. Jason?
No, there is nothing worse. I mean, that is literally the direct worship. And, God is a God of sacrifice. Clearly in the Old Testament there was sacrifice, but he's still a God of sacrifice. He expects us to sacrifice a broken heart, our love, our will, to him. Lucifer is also a God of sacrifice. And the greatest sacrifice that you can give to him is sacrificing. It's real. It's real. It's just as real as the Old Testament, just as real. It is real. And, the interesting thing about this, when this stuff was first brought to me, I had a real hard time with it. Someone brought me a story about David Hamblin, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about that by now. And his daughters and the victim statements that implicate many people in our community, from David Levitt to Gordon Bowen, who's a close associate with many of the 12. And when I first read it, it was horrific. And, God bless any of you that have the fortitude to read that. And I know most can't. I actually had to fast for a few days to get through it because it was so heavy and painful. But we did a show on it, and because I did believe these little girls, and we did a few shows on it. And eventually we were, the beginning of this year, we were threatened with a lawsuit to take it down. And we knew when we did those shows that we were putting ourselves at great risk. We had our channel hacked, taken down, not by YouTube, but by someone who hacked into my email and took it down. We've been under attack for that stuff. And so we knew there was risk, but, we thought, if this is real, and I firmly believe it is real, then how can we take this down? And so we said, no, you guys, we refuse to take it down. In fact, well, and then they end up suing us, and we're in the middle of that lawsuit. But my wife and I did, and kudos to her, she's a warrior. We said, you know what, if we're going to be in this fight, we need to understand it. And so we made a commitment to interview as many survivors as we could of this type of abuse. And I will tell you, that's led us to a journey that turned our whole world around in a way that I still struggle to articulate. And I struggle to articulate because I can't articulate some of the things I've learned, because the general public would never believe it, and they'd think it's crazy, just like I thought it was crazy when I first started hearing this stuff. But we've talked to enough people where there is no doubt this stuff is very real. And this LDS Church of Satan, which is, a satanic organization that seeks to hide within the church, and they're very, very real, and they have been very effective, and they are very good at protecting each other. This is why you see people like David Hamblin, who even admits he raped his daughter on video camera, who's been accused by multiple people of abusing multiple patients, has never seen justice, because that is what a secret combination is. If anyone should understand, it should be Utah, but frankly, we can't seem to apply scripture to ourselves in this state. And so these people run free. They know they can get away with anything. And so our whole mission is to slowly expose it. And I think eventually God will shine a light on this, and he's been shining a light on it all over the world and all over the country. I think people are seeing this stuff. And I think God will give everybody enough of a view at the darkness that people will have a choice to either keep their head in the sand during this great battle, like many did and before this world was created, or to stand and fight with Michael, with the Savior. And I think the Lord expects us to fight. I think that's why a lot of us don't want to listen to it, because we don't want the responsibility that comes with it. Because look, you hit it the nail on the head. You fight, all of us fight daily with the adversary. And it is enough that most of us struggle, self included. But when you start to go down the road we're going down now, all of a sudden you're fighting with them physically. And that is a very different battle, because now it's on two fronts. And look, but the fact of the matter is, when you understand this and you go back to the power structure of who runs this state, and you start talking to survivor after survivor, this state is run by these people. And I mean that very literally. They are in complete control. Most of the big names are tied to victim statements. And eventually we will let them out slowly, but we have to do things very carefully, because we know what kind of target's on our back. But I will tell you this, I'll swear right to my maker that I know this stuff is real. I know it's true. I've seen enough that I cannot deny it. I cannot deny it. And nor can I deny how much it's permeated this entire state. And if you really want to understand the corruption in Utah, if you want to understand, this is what makes it all make sense. This is why we're doing smart cities. This is why we're embedded with the United Nations. This is why the United Nations meets here, the only place in America outside of New York. This is why they meet here, especially when you understand the United Nations is at its core a satanic organization. In fact, you've had many of the brethren in the past say that. This is why we're in bed with the World Economic Forum, building smart cities. This is why we're in bed with China. This is why all the things that don't make sense, the pushing of the jab, everything that doesn't make sense. Why Utah? Why so much interest? When you understand how powerful the LDS Church of Satan is, and how much money and power and influence and how much control they have over this state, then you understand why all these global organizations are focused on Utah, because this state is completely captured, and you have the sheep that have no clue what's going on. All is well in Zion. Meanwhile, everything that is leading up to the second coming, to all the prophetic stuff, is happening in your backyard. And because of the psychosis, because so many people in power at every level are involved with this, and because they know how to keep the secret, just like these Hollywood actors do, and because they know you and I are just dumb sheep, dumb zombies that are living in this world, that have no clue how the real world works and how much power they all have, they've been very successful. But the fact of the matter is, it's real. It's 100% real. I promise. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I'm more concerned about my conscience before God, and I have been shown this, and I will stand by it till the day I die.
Okay, so a couple thoughts that have come to my mind over the last okay, so I've shared with, before I get to that thought, I've had this knowledge that this is happening probably since at least the early 90s, if not the late 80s.
Yeah.
It has been shared with me. I've had people share it with me back that far. That it's been happening right here in Utah. Now, I agree with you that let me bring up, for those members, those people that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you've said that well, if the most light's going to be here, the most wickedness is going to be here. I want to say it was Brigham Young said the same thing, but one of the very first presidents of the church said Salt Lake City, Utah is going to be one of the most evil places in the world.
Yeah.
So we can go back to all the way back to those forebears of Utah, of the church, that have mentioned that one of the most wicked places in all of the world, if not the most wicked place, is going to be right here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah.
So,
and people should ask, what does that mean? In the prophetic times before the Savior, when things are the most wicked they've ever been, What kind of wickedness does that mean? Is that talking about people sitting on the corner smoking cigarettes, or people involved in same-sex marriage? No. What is the greatest wickedness of time always been? What does the Savior say about those who abuse children? Better a millstone hung around their neck and drown in the depths of the sea. No. The greatest wickedness, it is this type of evil. And where does evil and power? Where does evil always want to what always pulls them? Where you can always find them at the center of power, because evil wants to control. The adversary wants kingdoms, kings, principalities. He wants to rule people. You will find the greatest evil in the centers of power, which are in the halls of Congress in this state, because that way they can rule. And of course they use the media. Of course I've got, at this point, I can't even tell you because the show hasn't come out, but I will tell you this. We have stake presidents. We have temple workers that are tied to this stuff. I have a sitting temple president, and that show will come out soon, who is implicated in this stuff. This is not just, people with long hair that, look rough around the edges. These people know how to infiltrate, and they have infiltrated this church far more than you would never believe.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? That is exactly where you want to go.
At what time did the adversary not focus on infiltrating the church? The Catholic Church, Christ's church that he set up? At what point was it not infiltrated by the adversary? And at what point was churches not used for evil once he did? But I think people have this idea that, oh no, it can never happen. And, we have this, these cultural things that, the Lord had never allow that to happen. And not, but when no one can, but it's actually not scriptural, that stuff. It's not in modern scripture, or, but we've been culturally taught to just trust that the church, leaders, the corporation can never lead, can never do anything wrong. But of course, how do you, but the jab must have been some sort of exception to that rule. I don't know, but maybe we should have all taken the jab. I mean, people we don't want to think for ourselves. We just want to trust leadership. Then we do the same thing as Trump. It's just trust Trump. He trusts the plan. No. I think we are on the verge of seeing a leadership crisis that this world has never seen. And I think people are going to be very surprised when they think some of the saviors they've been worshiping, are on the wrong side. And I'm talking politically, and I'm talking spiritually. And this is where people are going to have a hard time with me. But like I said, I'm more concerned about truth, and I'm more concerned what God thinks. And the things I've seen, I have to see, I will not deny.
So I absolutely think that we have some very high spiritual leaders that obviously have been part of this. I don't question that. One of the things that I want to do, though, is I can only do so much. Our audience can only do so much. So one of the things that I'm curious to know is, what are patterns that you've heard that maybe I can see? Because I've been a football coach. I've been around youth. I've got a number of children that come over to my home, and a number of children that have been in my life that have been friends of my children. And part of my responsibility, I just had a kid, just had a young man, in his 20s, just came across him, and they were like, "Hey coach, how you doing?" And sharing with me how his life is going. He's getting married. Wonderful things. So what comes to my mind is, I'm sure we have a number of listeners. The type of listeners that listen to this type of content are leaders, right?
Yeah.
What are some consistent patterns that you hear are going on that they can go, "Oh my gosh, maybe one of these kids have it going on," because anything you can do to help interrupt that pattern, I think, is important.
So
yes, go ahead.
No, go on. Finish what you're saying.
We've got to call out those leaders, but sometimes, for me, I have no power to call out any leader. No one's going to listen to Talk with John. Well, a number of people will.
I mean, I completely disagree with you there, but go on.
But what I want to do is not just tell my neighbors this is happening, but I want to do what I can to help out the children and pull them back and away from it. I want to not only protect my own children, but protect as many children as possible. So what type of patterns have you been told that people need to keep an eye out for? Hey, this is something that may be happening and may be going on in a house next to me.
Yeah. So I'm going to start by talking about what is ritual abuse, and why. Because ritual abuse is when you it's not just about sexually abusing a child or raping. It's about torturing, and if you understand
programming
and programming. In fact, this stuff's been going on since the dawn of time, and it's the perfect crime. And it's not just about a crime. There's real reason for it. And when you understand what's capable, what can be done with it, and the power behind it, you start to understand that there's this. It's not even about, to them, the suffering, the trauma. To them, they justify that. But this is where and again, this is Project Mockingbird and what is it called?
Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, Manchurian Candidate,
MK Ultra.
This is where they studied this. Hitler and his scientists, they studied this. They studied what these Satanists were doing because it's been going on. It's not new. And they've tried to understand because there's power in it. So, but the purpose of the ritualized abuse is twofold. One is it is sacrifice. You're calling on powers that is very real, very real. But two is you're torturing a child. You torture them so deeply into such great pain that the only way they can survive is to split, and they fraction. And there's a side of them, a part of them, and they call it a part, that can handle that handles that abuse and takes abuse. But once that abuse is over, their conscious side does not even know it existed. So and this is not unusual. There's a lot of people who have been through very traumatic things and they can't remember it. It was so traumatic they can't remember. That's a gift from God to protect us from such suffering, because to remember that is pain. So that is, and each fractured part of an individual, usually once they fracture that, they train that part of the individual. Like the Manchurian Candidate, or one of the most common things is these, they turn these girls into sex slaves because, again, there's nothing more valuable than a girl or a little boy who you can pimp out over and over and over again, and they know how to perform, and they're highly trained. Usually they have a separate name, so each part has a different name and purpose. It's like I said, this is a world that. When we started talking to these survivors, it was like we couldn't sleep at night. It was like, how can this stuff be going on underneath our noses? How can this be real? But there is a very real world that exists. So the reason I start with understanding the purpose of ritual abuse, this is not like traditional abuse of a girl being raped, molested, because those girls, they're going to carry that with them. They're conscious of it, right? They remember it. And as a result, they have daddy issues and they're over sexualized. Now, a lot of these girls and boys that are ritually abused are also highly sexualized all the time. I mean, there's stories about little girls. We've met several and talked to several where little primary girls are caught at church masturbating, like little 4-year-old girls. And that's not natural. That doesn't happen on their own. Kids molesting other kids, that's not natural. Over sexualized kids, that would be a sign. But here's the real thing that makes this so difficult is these kids, when they are in their part that has been sexualized and tortured, they will have them perform other rituals, that they're involved in this dark underbelly. But the day walker, the side that goes to church, has no clue that other side exists. So you'll be next door. Your next door neighbor is going to church. They're following the commandments. They're very active, very modest. But when it's time to be, their handler calls them and flips them, all of a sudden it's a completely different personality. So this is what's hard is, yes, there's patterns to where we see it, but it's usually not by watching their behavior, because one thing is their behavior. This is the beautiful thing about it too. Like the Manchurian candidate, you get that person in their conscious mind, and even if their alternate, part committed murder or this thing, they literally don't know. Like they do not know that side exists. In fact, here's a mind trip for you. Okay. I got an email because we have an email for abuse victims, and we screen a lot. Sweet woman. Okay. Says I don't know where to go. I know I had some ritual abuse when I was a kid. I don't know a lot about it, but I have some memories. But it's very foggy, and I thought that was just when I was a kid. Well, she said, my daughter has been estranged to me, and my daughter came out the other day and told me that I had ritually abused her. And she says, I believe her because I know she's not lying. But what do? Do I call the police? Do I turn myself in? She's like, I would rather, she said, I want to kill myself because I'd rather kill myself than do these things. In this personality that I don't even know who's calling me, well, how it's happening and so she's like terrified because this woman is a beautiful, good-hearted Christian woman, but she has a side of her that has been programmed since she was a child to be an animal. And when she's in that animal side, she is a literal murderer. And this is if you read the Glenn Pace memos, the presiding bishopric did to dive into this back in the early 90s because this was all coming up. He interviewed 60.
Okay, real quickly, audience, look up the Glenn Pace memo. You can find it online. It's important. He was one of the presiding bishopric, and the church authorities asked him to look into, is there satanic ritual abuse happening within the church? And I'm not saying, I'm going to say this, not necessarily saying that it was I'm not stating it was church sanctioned, but I'm saying church members and high position church members were doing it. And he said yes.
Oh yeah, he gave a whole report. He says it's all over. He says at every level of the church, this stuff is going on, and I don't know what to do because the perpetrators are also victims, because that's what they do. Is once these little kids as young as they can, they have them participate in other abuse. So I mean, it's a horrific thing. But the fact of the matter is, no, this stuff is it is very real. It is very hard. I mean, like I said. I've got a sitting temple president who's tied to this stuff. You think you're going to the temple, looking him in the eye, and think that guy's worshiping Satan? You have no idea.
Right? No way you'd think that.
You have no idea. I've got a guy in the Timpanogos temple that works there, that's involved with this stuff allegedly. I mean, these people, stake presidents. You got whole wards and stakes tied. The Edgemont stake, whole stakes, and stake presidents that happen to keep getting placed there that are tied to this stuff. Who's putting them there? This is the stuff that when people start to understand, you understand, you cannot understand Utah unless you understand the dark underbelly that is ruling this state. And when Christ talks about the desolation and the destruction, there's a reason he says it will begin in his house, because his house has been taken over by the adversary, literally.
So,
I want to add one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
This is important. You said, how do you know? Another huge thing is this. These people, this is just like the kings and queens of ancient times. Bloodlines. Bloodlines are very important to them. They royalty, they're Mormon royalty bloodlines. This is their genealogy is actually tied to their downfall. Because they abuse their kids, because their bloodlines are sacred to them. It is familial. That's why the grandparents are abusing the kids. That's why they keep it in the family. One is you control it, but two is you're perpetuating your bloodline to Lucifer. And so when you start to understand certain families are tied to it, and I mean, that's a huge thing is the bloodlines.
Well, you know that my bloodline isn't pure, so Okay, so another thing is, why wouldn't you? Okay, so if I could talk with Mr. Ballard,
Ken Ballard.
Ken Ballard, yes, I know some other. I just about named some other first names because I know a number of people in the Ballard family, or with the Ballard last name, and I almost started to name them off that are, yeah. So Tim Ballard, if I was with him and I talked to Ken Toon about this, who's been part of the Underground Railroad and is a huge piece to this. I said, how do you and one of the things that I have concern with the Underground Railroad and organizations like that, if I was one of these people that wanted to abuse children, I would totally want to be part of that because I'm going to find someone that does the abuse. So that's another deep-seated underbelly. Now, let me be clear. I don't think Tim Ballard's one of the guys that are part of the problems. I could be wrong. I may be found to be wrong. I don't think I am. But the bottom line is that's where we have to watch and pay attention, is that these things are surrounding us. And what I go is, what can we do? And you said bloodlines are important. People that are over sexualized. So be forgiving. If you come across someone like that, be forgiving, understanding, because you don't know what's going on. And the bottom line is, we know this from MK Ultra. You can hold up a picture of someone and saying, this is the person that's doing it to you. I'm not doing it to you. This is the person that's doing to him. And because of that fracturization that's happening, you can do that. You can go and get them to murder. That's the whole idea behind the Manchurian Candidate. And something tells me that wasn't like a completely untrue story.
Right. No, and this gets into what's coming in a lot of the, you look a lot of Antifa and some of these agitators, shooters, and a lot of them are MK Ultra. I mean, it's the same thing you create. I mean, they control these people, and yeah, it sounds crazy, but I don't care. This is reality, whether people want to face it or not. But the fact of the matter is, what can we do? Because I think that's a very important question. I don't want to.
What do we do?
Well, what is it they fear? What is it that darkness fears? Light. Okay. What is it? Why do these Hollywood actors who we know are tied into stuff? Why is it Rayanne and they do this The Secret with SH tattooed on there? Because the adversary is like a cockroach. His power is below. It is underground. It is in darkness. And the last thing they want is for the masses to awaken to their awful situation and start to ask questions and start to demand justice. Because the minute we start demanding justice, all of a sudden, guess what? There are thousands of victims in our backyard. I promise you probably know, I'll bet you probably know 50. I'm not, that's not an exaggeration. Maybe not know them intimately, but you know their names, and you intimately probably know, I'll bet, a 15 or 20. I mean, it is that predominant in this state. And the thing that has allowed this to take hold, it's the same thing that has allowed the temple ceremony to stay quiet by active LDS people. We don't talk about it. Right? Don't you make promises?
Right.
Covenants? This doesn't go out. We don't talk about this. You don't think they have the same types of inverted ordinances and covenants with darkness? I mean, that's what secret combinations are.
They would exactly mimic that.
Very similar. It's very similar, but is twisted and as dark and horrific as you can imagine. But what they fear is the general public. We, the people, start to awaken to our awful situation and call it out. Because the thing is, the minute we start believing the victims, the minute we start demanding justice, guess what? You have an army of these people who are tied into this stuff, who hate it, who hate what they do, who hate who they've become. But they know there's no way out because there is no justice. But the more people start talking about it, the more of them that come out and admit this is happening, the more they see all of a sudden David Hamblin and this judge and box elder who was abusing his grandkids, and the fire chief,
and the fire chief.
Or they see these people And this McConkey, not Kirk McConkey, Elder McConkey's grandson, who just got arrested for sodomizing using his child. Elder McConkey's grandson. Okay, this was, then again, the news won't cover it. Busted and plea dealed him while he was using his children to masturbate. Okay, these people are freaking sick. And the justice system protects them, gives them plea deals. Bassett, okay, the Bassett case in Fruit Heights, abused 50 kids, yet he had connected to high-profile church leaders, had a high-profile church attorney, and all of a sudden, what happened? He took a plea deal. This guy's raping 50 kids, and he's still on the streets because as secret combination, we protect our own. What can we do? We can start talking about it.
Okay.
We can start exposing it. We can talk about the victims. We can listen to their stories. The minute we start talking about it, they lose power and they are terrified of it.
Okay. So Jason, you're crazy. Okay. I'm going to give you, I know there's some thoughts out there. Jason, you're crazy. They wouldn't cover it up. They don't have the ability to. It actually happened with the judge up in Tremont that you're mentioning. He gave a very low bell to the fire chief when it came before him, and come to find out, they were talking to one another. They're lovers. They're lovers and intimately connected.
Yeah.
They
why has there been no justice for Pizzagate? Why no justice for Epstein? Because they protect each other. And yes, they will throw each other under the bus to a degree. But when it comes to real justice, all of us think that these people we worship, these politicians are, we're going to go to get after Epstein. Nothing. No one's going after Hillary. They protect each other. And yes, they will play this game like I'm after them. And that's good. But it's all a charade to keep us, the people with real power, focused on fighting each other rather than standing up to fight the elite. And just as they do it nationally, they do it here.
Oh, absolutely. And they, in my opinion, they probably do it better here. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you about Elon, and then I want to bring on Trent. So we need to transition away from this a little bit. But the bottom line is, thank you for talking about this. And if you think Jason's crazy, the bottom line is we have evidence that we have judges here in Utah. We have at least one judge here in Utah. Now, he was caught. Are there other judges?
And that's important. How was he caught? Not by the Utah justice, by outside FBI. As long as you keep the outside forces and we stay in our own box, these people are protected. He would still be preying on his children, but it was outside FBI that
okay, so I do have someone that says, I'm not sure that somebody locally couldn't get something done and gave information to the FBI. I have had Utah Sheriff Department deputies tell me I have to give stuff to the FBI when David Leavitt was in office. And David Leavitt was a mistake of mine. I actually supported him at one point in time. Come to find out I'm wrong. So John gets things wrong every once in a while. Talk with John was wrong on that one. For a short period of time, I was behind David Leavitt until I started getting information like that. We'll have Trent join us in just a moment. But I want to mention this real quickly. You're watching and listening to KMMU.org on Main Street Media, which is Main Street Media Utah. You can watch us and share and like and subscribe with others. We're here on X, YouTube, Rumble, and our website, KMMU.org. Please, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to share and subscribe and go to the platform you'd like. Also, please go to Jason's website, wearethepeople.org. Correct? Did I get it right?
That's it. Yeah.
Wearethepeople.org. Please go to Jason. Go to Jason's website and fantastic stuff. Jason puts out great stuff. Okay, so I want to ask you, and I'll let Trent join in on this one if he wants, and I'll be bringing him on momentarily. What is your thoughts about Elon Musk? I am really, really worried about that individual. I think if there's anyone that could be the Antichrist. It could be him. Why, John, do you say that? Because my understanding is that it won't be nations. It eventually will become the business and merchants of the world. No one's better placed for that right now, I think, than Elon Musk. Your thoughts?
I think the most powerful thing that's happened in this country in the last 100 years was the Tea Party movement. It was when we, the people, realized that both parties were corrupted and we were no longer playing the game. And we started learning the Constitution. We started speaking up. We started cleaning house. We rose up in great numbers. We turned over 70% of the House and the Senate, as biggest house cleaning in the history of this country. We terrified the establishment because anytime in history where the masses rise up, you have freedom. You cannot rule the masses when the masses are awake and unruly. Well, Albert Pike, 33-degree Mason, very famous. He's fundamentally transformed this country into the wrong direction. He has a very powerful quote. It says, "When the people need a hero, we shall supply them," or supply him. And they've been very good at that. And I think it became very clear with the Tea Party movement that, wow, these people are unruly. We need to be leading them. We need a leader in place that we control, that they will follow. And that's why we have to be very careful of political saviors, because I mean, politics is more fake than WWF wrestling. And I mean, anyone who's been involved in political game, you hear even Cox, all these people, when they get up, they will lie. They'll say what you want. They'll do what you want to get you to believe and trust them. And then they're wolves in sheep's clothing. So Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, you start looking at people surrounding Trump. I've got massive red flags. Where'd they come from? Where'd their money come from? You start to ask the questions that the media on the right won't ask. And you start to realize really quickly that, no, these people are not on the same page. They do not have, liberty of our children in mind. How quickly have we forgotten that? How often does Elon Musk and Bill Gates and all these, technocrats tell us that by 2030, phones will be obsolete? What will replace them? That's something people should be thinking about. The other thing they're talking about is this new, I call it Skynet, but what is their Elon Musk's, what is his internet thing?
The satellite internet. Yeah.
What?
It's a satellite internet, right?
What is it called though?
Skylink.
It is Skylink.
Yeah. But bottom line is this, and it was, you'll have internet everywhere. Well, in 2030, when the phone is integrated into you, because that's what these guys are working on, Neuralink. Yeah, that's a great idea. You're not going anywhere without being seen. You will never be offline. In this digital world that they are creating, the AI governance that they are racing towards right now, and as long as they talk about gender and trans but no more boys and women's sports, the right cheers. Meanwhile, they're implementing Agenda 2030 right underneath our noses, and they're bringing in digital dollar, digital ID, the surveillance state, and the right so excited that Biden's not in office and that we're finally getting boys out of women's sports, that they're just like the left, listening to what their media wants them to hear and not questioning it. So yeah, Elon Musk, come on. That's like 101. His mother was satanic. You just go look through everything about him and all the things he's talking about. That guy is, I don't know. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for the right, but I get it. He gave us free speech. So yeah, let's hurrah. Yeah, it means everything he does is good. Heaven forbid he be, that he could be a false, that he could be fake. I don't know. That's
well. Let's not forget one of his wives was a declared witch. So okay. So Starlink. It's Starlink. Thank you, Dwayne. So close, Trent. You know what? I jumped right in on that, Trent. So it's I can't, and that's what I wanted to say. So it's not your fault, right? Starlink is what it was that Elon has launched. So the reason why I asked Trent to join us. I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, is I want to talk a little bit about the Republican Party. So Jason and I had a chit chat during the Republican Party, and and Trent and I chit-chatted too. So here's the question that I put out, and the question that's going through a number of delegates' minds, that they even talked to me on the way in. So I was on the phone talking to someone, telling them where I was at, and I was like, and they were talking to me how they mentioned, John, you said you've got some questions on the Republican Party and that they're trying to get rid of the you being a delegate. Are you going to do it next year? And this is, I'm walking in and I'm like, well, it sure seems like they're trying to make it very uncomfortable for delegates to come and serve. Why do you say that, John? Because last when we selected our who was running for governor, when we met a little over a year ago at the at the Salt Palace, and real quick, there we go. We Are the People, Utah. That's where you can go to visit Jason Preston.
YouTube. Yeah, that's the YouTube page.
His YouTube page. All right. So where was I at? So I was walking in and I just said, okay, I was walking in and I said, I think they're trying to make it very uncomfortable for the delegates to do this. They happened to pick a day and a venue where there was a car show being held at UVU, and that's been held there, I want to say, for over a decade, that same weekend. They also had state baseball going on in the park. There was hardly any parking. I mean, the parking was terrible there, let alone a year ago, it went until after midnight before we were able to get out of there with the results. So it seems like the Republican Party is trying to keep the make it uncomfortable and unfun for the delegates to be there. So the question that comes from that is and after we have Phil Lyman not get voted as the GOP chair, to me that was the biggest one, and then Don was not selected as well as the secretary. There are people that are going, it's time for us to find something else. Jason and Trent have given me a couple different thoughts. I think we're similarly minded in general, but Trent, I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts? And then Jason, I want to get your thoughts. So let's start with Trent, because he's been here for 7 minutes and not saying anything. He's actually been here a little bit longer. So let's give him a chance to talk, because talk with John's a blowhard. Let's be clear.
It's hard to sit for 7 minutes and not say anything, John. So I appreciate you letting me get some steam out there. Jason, thanks for what you said. I listened to the last hour. I appreciate what you're doing. And I just want to say that off the bat. Thank you. And there's several things I want to reference as we kind of get into this, but and I'm going to perhaps repeat a couple of things that I said with you last week, John, but I think it'll be worth the debate. Look, we complain about how long the state convention went. We complain about what happened, what was happening at the UCCU Center. We complain about, I've seen several different theories of the Action campaign had access to these lists, or this happened, or that happened, or this happened. And what it comes back to me is, and I had a mentor of mine teach me this just recently, the difference between tactics and strategy. Okay? Tactics and strategy. Tactics is, I'm going to build a website. I'm going to get a social media post out there. I'm going to do one thing, and that thing is going to be important, and a lot of people are going to see it. Okay? Tactics are important. You string enough tactics together and you do it in a very smart way to lead to an ultimate goal, and that's a strategy. And what we lack as a party is a strategy and a central figure to execute that strategy. Okay? Now, we can differ on what the strategy ought to be, on what the tactics ought to be, on the timing, all those different things. But I don't know. I'd love your guys' opinion. We lack a coherent, and by we, I mean the patriots that see the problems in the party, that see what's going on, that see the things that Jason mentioned all the last hour, and we don't know what to do with it because we're divided. Not because we don't like each other or trust each other, but we haven't built a coherent strategy and therefore built the tactics that are going to lead to an endpoint. Let me give you an example, okay? I feel like I can say this and I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again. I feel like I can say this because, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm the only person that ran for statewide or federal office in 2024, only one that came out publicly and backed Phil in this chairman race, okay? Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think I'm the only one, so I think I can say this. Phil lost that race. Phil lost it for himself, okay? Now, there's levels to that, there's strategy to that, but let me tell you what I mean. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? I took a very good friend of mine who's a supporter, wanted to support Phil Lyman, and could get access to the Trump campaign for Phil. Took him to meet with Phil. I took him to lunch, and it was Phil and his beautiful wife and several of his campaign team. And we asked him very specific questions that a business person would ask. Phil, who's your campaign manager? And he said, well, we have 3 of them. And we said, you have 3? And he said, yeah, it's this person and kind of this person, and there's sort of a 4th. Okay. Who does your fundraising? Well, no one really, but there's kind of this person and kind of that person. Okay, so we're starting to get a feel like, wait a second, this isn't organized. This isn't an effort. This is a shoestring effort, right? And the kicker was, and you'll appreciate this, John. I said, well, who does your media buys? And bless his heart, he said, what do you mean? And so he didn't know what I meant by who's buying your media, who's doing this, who's running your campaign. There wasn't a structure. There's a message, because there always is. We're Republicans. We know the truth. And it's not hard for us to say, this is what is true. This is common sense, right? But if you can't back that up with structure, if you can't back that up with a team, okay, then you're going to have problems. Now, that was his gubernatorial race. What happened with his chairman race? He only needed a majority of 4,000 delegates. Well, 2,560, which is who showed up, right? He only needed a majority of that. Not even the hundreds of thousands, right? He didn't have it. He still, again, didn't learn the lesson, didn't have a structure, didn't have a team, didn't have fundraising. You know, it was Phil and the mic, and he still almost won. He lost by 125 votes, meaning that if 63 people had swung the other way, Phil would be the chairman, okay? But here's the thing, and I'll give you one specific example. Phil gave a speech that I found to be deficient, okay? It had passion, it had emotion. And Phil's very good at that. Sons of Liberty. Phil feels like he would have been a son of liberty. He talked about the parables of Jesus, right? I could feel it. But in my mind, I was begging him. The people around me could hear. I was just like, Phil, begging him. Phil, tell us what you've done and tell us what you'll do. It's just simple. What are the 4 things you're going to accomplish? And maybe a little bit about how you're going to accomplish them during your tenure as chair. And nothing. Now, that's Phil's fault. But it's also Phil's fault for not building a team around himself to say, hey, Phil, did you write a speech? Can I see it? Would you like me to write you a speech? Hey, and if Phil says, I'm just going to kind of wing it, he needs a team around him to say, that's a terrible idea. Even the best of us that are really good at public speaking need teams around us to say, no, don't say that, say this, here's some better language. Or how about maybe give them a vision for what you're going to do as chair. We played this little game last time, John. I said to you, okay, of the 2,560 delegates that showed up, what percentage of them do you think showed up undecided on the chairmanship race? 20%?
I said 20%. I said 20%.
30%, 40%, maybe even 10%. Okay. Do you know 125 votes? That's 2.5% of that 2,560. Okay. All he had to do was swing an additional 2.5% of delegates his way and he wins. Okay. But you can't blame people for coming undecided. Half of the delegates, every time the delegates were elected, half of them are new, brand new, never done it before, okay? The other half have probably done it several times, right? Like that was my 7th time being a state or county delegate. I get the joke, right? A lot of these people come and they say, okay, convince me. They see the booth, they talk to the candidates, they want to listen to the speeches, and say what you will. Rob said, this is what I've done, this is what I'll do. So at least the people in the audience knew what Rob was going to do, but you walk away from Lyman's speech not knowing. You know that he loves liberty, and so do I, but I guess I'll go with that guy, right? So there's a deficiency in having the right tactics to build out the right strategy. Now, I only use that. I don't want to bag on Phil, okay? But we lost a very winnable chairman's race. I mean, Jason, you were there. John, you were there. The energy in the room was for Phil. The passion in the room was for Phil, right? And there were people that were just like, okay, people seem to like Phil. Let's hear what he has to say, okay? That was Phil's to lose, and he lost it. Love the guy, okay? He may run again. I don't know. But why does that matter for your question? Your question was overall, like, what do we do as a party? Where do we go from here? Well, where we go from here is we have to understand that each We have so many amazing groups. I mean, we have We Are the People, right? We have your show, John. We have KMMU that is hosting this right now. We've got the Eagle Forum. We've got the Utah County Conservative Women. We've got the Davis County Conservative Women. We can just keep going, right? All these amazing, what Jen Brown is doing, all these different people doing amazing things, right? But we're doing them in our separate silos. And to Jason's excellent point, if the people unite, there's no stopping us, okay? Now, there has to be a point around which you unite. In the gospel, it's Christ. You unite around Christ. That's the singular point around which you come together. Okay, well, what is it in conservatism? Well, it's going to shift, right? It was different during Reagan's time than it is now during Trump's time. There are different issues, right? And we can get into Elon Musk and Jason, what you said, all the different things. But there is an issue right now that is so fundamental to the future of what we're trying to talk about, what we're trying to do as a party and a state, what we're trying to do, what Jason's trying to do to fix the problems that are happening, the dirty underbelly of the state. It's right in front of us, and it's almost do or die. I would submit that the one issue that we need to focus on is SB 54, okay? And Delane England taught me something really important, and I'm going to give her credit for this. She said, we talk about SB 54, and she called me on it because it's the same mistake that Phil made. When you say SB 54, you assume that whoever's listening to you goes, oh yeah, SB 54, gotcha. And they don't. I have something I called my mom test. My mom's 80 years old and English is her second language. She's she was naturalized immigrant from Argentina. If my mom knows what I'm talking about, then I know that I'm using the right language. But if I went to my mom's house and I said SB 54, what are you talking about? Or she'd say it with a Spanish accent, but what are you talking about, right? She doesn't get it. But if I said we need to preserve the caucus system, we need to preserve the Democratic caucus system, people get that. Now, there is an effort underway. It's sort of percolating, okay? There's an effort underway, some sort of bill, some sort of legislation to just wipe it out, to wipe out caucus, not wipe out SB 54 in the signature gathering process. And for those that are wondering, that are listening, when I say SB 54, I mean when the legislature created a pathway to get onto the ballot by gathering signatures, okay? You can go out and get an army of volunteers and go to every single county and get the required number of signatures, or you can pay somebody to do it. So I ran for statewide office in 2024. I didn't get signatures. Had I got signatures, that would have cost me around $300,000 to get signatures in a statewide race. It's about 28,000 signatures. That's a lot of money, okay? And most of your run-of-the-mill candidates don't have $300,000, right? So they go the convention route. Well, who does have $300,000? The entrenched interests that are part of the problem that Jason was talking about in this last hour. They've got that much money. They have hedge funds worth billions of dollars, okay? Or they themselves are worth billions of dollars, or outside money is worth billions of dollars. What I'm hearing is there is an outside of this state effort to bring money in to make it a petition to just get rid of the caucus system. And if they do that, they've won, okay? Because at that point, it's just money that'll win. Even people like me who don't want to get signatures would have to get signatures. And yes, I could get volunteers together and go out and get my signatures, but the weight of the effort, the weight of the scales tip towards those with money, which means that those with money control who gets in office. It means they control the dialogue, the conversation, they control the sheriffs, they control the courts, they control everything. And the only thing that's keeping them at bay at the moment is the caucus convention system. So let me just say one more thing. There's an effort underway, and you'll be seeing it very soon, to unite those different groups and have a strategy, an overall strategy, not various tactics, okay, but a strategy that will preserve the caucus system and that will eliminate the signature process. That is happening. There's more to come on this soon. It involves KMMU. It involves you, John, and hopefully it involves you, Jason. I'd love to have you be a part of it, but that's coming.
Okay.
Details to follow.
Real quickly, Dwayne said no one's coming to save us. All right. Jason, you were quiet for 11 minutes.
Coming to save us.
Brother, what's your thoughts?
What is the definition of insanity?
Oh, no. Doing the same thing over again.
You've been a delegate 7 years.
And expecting different results.
Okay, 7 years. Okay, SB 54.
SB
54.
Seven times. So
11 years now. 11 years ago. Gail Miller, Scott Anderson, Zions Bank. This is clearly the Utah elite. Yep. They want to make sure the grassroots cannot upset and disrupt their plans to turn this state into what they're turning it into. Since they have done that, it has been year in and year out of loss. Nobody who is willing to get in and buck the system, who is a threat to the elite, has ever made it through since then. I mean, look, the purpose. So let's talk about the Republican Party was neutered. It's a private organization, and they have one job: pick candidates who will represent their brand and censor those who are not in alignment with their brand. Our party cannot do that. It is a neutered, feckless, spineless system that has no power. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right, but I think there's a reason you're right. So
the fact of the matter is, you talk about systems and strategy. There is the purpose of the current Republican Party is not what it claims to do. It is what it does. What does it do? It shuts down the grassroots. And it has been doing that effectively for 10 years. And the other thing that dawned on me at convention is when I thought, you know what? And yeah, there wasn't there, everyone wasn't there, but 4,000 state delegates. How many county delegates? 5,000 or more? 10,000? 15,000 people, just delegates? 20,000? We have, what if we had these 20,000 patriots who, instead of coming into the system that was created by the Utah elite to keep their wheels going on a hamster wheel with no ability to actually do anything, because let's face it, it was very clear what the delegates wanted last year, and it's been clear year after year after year. And when it was not what Cox wanted or the elite wanted, Cox just laughed, gave them all the bird, and said, "It doesn't matter what you think. I'm going in. I'm going to the finish line. I'm going to the big dance. Screw you all." Okay. So the fact of the matter is, if that group of 10, 15,000 people, that is the army that actually could do good. And the beautiful thing about the current state of the Republican Party is it's designed to capture them and keep them running, going nowhere, doing nothing. But if we could get that 10,000, 15,000 people and actually have real strategy and real tactics, like let's get 15,000 people that accepts the Capitol and say we're going to do a fast, we are not going to leave, or we will be back here day after day until we get rid of this SB 54, until we get some emergency legislation. If we had 15, 20,000 people at the Capitol or in the streets and said enough of our governor being able to choose his own lieutenant governor and appointing this person, that's power. And that is historically always worked. That we know is a strategy that works. And I'm not saying that is a strategy, but I put way more because last year when you were running, I brought you on our show and I made it very clear. You're on my show for one reason, not because I think anyone has any chance of upsetting the system, because I told you it was broken. And I didn't let anyone come stump on our thing because I knew it was a broken system and that Phil had no chance at getting through. But I said, Trent, I'll bring you on because you're going to expose corruption, which is what the people need to see, is expose corruption. But look, the purpose of a system is not what it claims to do. It is what it does. And what the Republican Party has done for the last 11 years has shut down the grassroots while keeping them running on a dang hamster wheel, and then keeping them every year just like this. Oh, guess what, Nick? We have this new plan. Rob Axon's got a new plan this year. Well, he had a new plan 2 years ago. I think we all forgot about that. And when Phil was starting to drop those lawsuits, how about Rob Axon say, you know what? We are going to stand by our candidate. We are going to challenge SB 54. What did he do? He went and kowtowed to Cox. Okay, so I'm not going to play this game again. Oh, this year we're going to fix the Republican Party, and we're going to work within the corrupted system that they corrupted and they neutered, and we're going to work within their system to fix their system. I don't think so. I don't see logic in that.
Okay, so
you and I
agree. Can I give my thoughts real quickly? This is
no.
And by the way, I do need to add this. I do not believe in like we're just going to take our bags and go home and be hopeless. I think it's new effort, new thinking, putting money into new things, not the same old broken thing. Go ahead.
Okay, so Okay, then basically you've said what I was going to say. This is what gets me upset with conservatives, especially my conservative friends who want to blame everything bad that happens on Israel. The bottom line is, it is the I consider myself a Christian conservative who happens to be a member of the Republican Party right now. If I find something better, I'm going to join that. If I find something that can do those things better, I'm going to do that. So what I would say is the most important thing that I can think of is it is time for people like me to do a better job. And I apologize to Phil. I said, Phil, I'm sorry I didn't do a better job of getting more people here to vote for you. A big percentage of why Jason, I firmly believe that.
It's not the problem.
I believe that is a big part of the problem. Is not.
No, the answer isn't fight harder, vote harder in a broken system that's corrupted. The system's broken. You know all the ways they have to cheat. How many of the voting records are marked private or withheld? We have a lieutenant governor who refuses to show things. We have every system, machines, every system that has been identified for fraud is utilized in Utah. Voting harder is not changing the problem.
Okay, I'm even saying for when Phil ran for the GOP chair, I should have done a better job of getting people like me that would support Phil Lyman to be the GOP chair.
You want to know something?
Go ahead.
They had checkmate, because this is what I knew. This is why I wanted to stay out of it. You know what happened if Phil got in? They'd bankrupt the party, and they'd blame it on the far right.
Probably.
Again, they had checkmate and they knew it. But I will say this: there's a reason they had all these establishment politicians back in.
I was surprised by some of the quote unquote some people that I thought weren't establishment that stood behind him. Okay, but yeah, well, there were a ton. And when you say stood behind him, I'm assuming you're speaking of standing behind Rob as he's given his speech. Is that?
No, I'm talking about campaigning for him.
Okay.
I'm talking about Amelia Gardner's power. I'm talking about. I mean, how many of our politicians? Again, that's the people we're trying to take power from. We're out backing him, like putting money into it. That should have been a huge red flag. But, anyways.
Okay, Trent.
So I agree. I think in a lot of ways you're right. Here's where we differ on this, Jason, and appreciate your perspective. That wasn't, I don't think, checkmated in a couple of ways. I saw Rob after the vote, and he knew that he just barely squeaked by. He knew that he didn't have it on lock. Now, your point was, had Phil won, they would have bankrupted the party. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe then the Republicans stand up, right? The people like you and me, and instead of we're getting 10,000 people up to the Capitol to do a fast, we're getting 10,000 people to put $100 in or whatever it is, right? There's different strategies and tactics at that point, but I refuse to believe that, 2 years down the road, we know what's going to happen, because, what we have is the next step in front of us, right? That's what we have. And the only play in chess, there's something called the end game, right? Which means you've gone through, you've kind of set the board, you've moved your pawns, initial strategies. Now you've done some tactical maneuvers. Okay, now you're down to the last 3 or 4 steps, okay? And there's one that's going to be critical. And if you make just the wrong move, that's checkmate, and they're going to get you, okay? That's where we are. I see us as a party here in the end game. And people might understand that without Avengers.
So you're right. We can't predict 2 years, but the best way to predict the future is by understanding the past. And the fact of the matter is, we're no closer today than we were 10 years ago. In fact, I would say we're much further away from having control of our. So, right. So again, I think there's
a reason why.
This time, everybody come invest your time, your money, your resources, because the Republican Party this time is going to save you. It's 11 damn years, bro. 11 years. At what point do we say, okay, time to think differently?
Hey, Jason, my turn. Thank you. But hold on a second. It has been 11 years, okay? But how long has your program been around?
A couple years.
Couple years, okay? You haven't had enough time to really dig into that, okay? John, how long has your program been around?
I've been doing it since 2019 in some form.
Okay. Okay, so let's give it some time. Let's give it some time to germinate. Hold on, Jason. Hold on a second. Let's give it some time because there's an effort that's coming that isn't in the system. See, you heard what I said and you put it in your box. And I'm telling you to just keep your box open a little bit, Jason. You thought that I said, well, let's get in the party and use the party to fix the party. Well, that's ridiculous. Okay, I have a car sitting in my garage right now that's broken. Okay, and I can either put thousands of dollars into it and fix it, and it's still going to run like garbage, or I can get myself a new car. Okay. Now, I'm not saying we work within the party. I'm agreeing with you. There are thousands of people that need to be mobilized, but taking them up to the Capitol and having them yell at the legislature or do a fast, that's not a tactic or a strategy I think is going to work. We can disagree on strategies. It's never okay? Okay, we can disagree on strategies. I interned for the House Majority Leader when I was in college, and there was huge, gatherings both inside the Capitol and outside of the Capitol, and those guys laugh. They laugh. They're like, oh, yeah. Great. I hope they brought dinner, blah, blah, blah. They don't care. Okay. Now, I get your point about calling in the Almighty. That's a different story, right? And we can do that. But if we're going to mobilize people, let's do it in a smart way. So listen to me. I'm not talking about retaking the party. I'm talking about an effort to use the grassroots that is mobilized. I mean, the group that Jen Brown has is the most excited, gung-ho party group that I've seen, right? These are conservatives and they want to work. They're just looking for direction.
For those of my listeners that don't know, so we've said Amelia Powers, Amelia Gardner. Amelia Gardner is the Utah County commissioner, right? And then who was the person you just mentioned? Let's say who she is.
Jen Brown.
Jen Brown.
What Patriot leader.
Okay. One of
right.
Continue.
We mentioned, and I should say we mentioned them in very different contexts. Yes. Okay, so let me just right. Let me get that straight. I don't think we fixed the party. Now, I'm going to say this, but this is a little bit of a tangent. I do see hopeful signs in the party, and I'll give you an example with the county elections. Okay, the county elections that just happened in Washington County, that was a slate of very, very strong conservatives. Okay. What happened in Davis County? I've seen Davis County slide to the left for a long time, and I'm hopeful given their new county leadership, right? County leadership in Salt Lake, hopeful there, okay? What Dwayne has done and the team has done in Wasatch County and Summit County, I'm very hopeful there, okay? So there's ways in which you can make change at the party and it can percolate up, right? County leadership leading to state leadership. I'll say it again. Phil needed 63 votes to win, okay? And had he won, who knows what would have happened, okay? But I'm saying that there is a fork in the road right now. There is an end game move that needs to happen. And whether or not we think we can fix the party or not, this is going to decide it. And it's the outside money that's going to come into this state, and you'll see it in the next several months. And and they are coming not to just take over the party, but to entrench everything you talked about last hour, Jason. I see this the same way you do. This is existential. This isn't a, hey, I don't love this political position. This determines the fate of the state. There's a reason that Utah is the only state that trended blue in the last election. California trended red. New York trended red. They're still blue, but they went in the right direction, politically right, but also the red direction, right? All of them did. And that's because of Trump. It's because of the zeitgeist of the country. It's because of the terrible, evil job that Joe Biden and his henchmen did and his auto pen did, right? But it's also because we have the truth on our side, except in Utah, which is trending blue, okay? And the way they're going to cement that is getting rid of, not just entrenching the signature process, but entirely eviscerating, getting rid of the caucus system. And that needs to be fought, okay? So this isn't a, hey, let's rally our Republican leaders. I don't trust them. Okay. It's let's get the people that are willing to be rallied, because you mentioned the 4,000 delegates. Let me give you a story. You're right. John, the convention was a mess. The caucuses were a mess. I mean, I think that they were purposely a mess in order to depress people from wanting to do it in the past. And I have a good friend from high school that I just happened to move into this neighborhood, and he just happens to live in my area. And I said, hey, come with me to come be a delegate. And I convinced him to do it. and now he's so mad at me that I convinced him to do it. He's like, I got to give up my Saturday, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. But I keep talking to him. Hey, come do this. This is important, okay? He's doing it because A, he loves America. He loves this state. He knows he's very conservative. But he's not the kind of person, and there's nothing wrong with this. He's not the kind of person that's going to pick up a pitchfork and go storm the Capitol or go up and do a fast to the Capitol or go do these other things. He's not. Okay. And that's okay. There's going to be those kind of people who are just like, look, I got my job, I got my mortgage, I got my kids. I don't have time for this. And they don't see it the way we see it. And we can't look down on them. We can't say, well, then you're lost. You're part of the evil people. No. We have to find the ones that are willing to play the game. And it's not the party. It's not the structure. It's not the corrupt. It's not the county clerks that would go along with Deidre Henderson and say, oh, it was safe and secure. It's the other county clerks, like in Utah County, that are saying, wait a second, we got some problems here. Or it's the new leadership in Washington County or in Davis County, right? Summit County, Wasatch County. It's those people and those that are already working, okay? Davis County women, Utah County women, all of them, okay? Mobilize them in an effort to start getting the word out, and we will have success, but you need to unify around a point. So I'm going to agree with you, Jason. The Tea Party was probably the greatest thing to happen to the conservative movement in the last 30 years, okay? But the beauty of the Tea Party was that it was entirely organic. No central force started that. There was no politician. There was no charismatic leader. There was nobody that said, gear up, people, put your tri-corner hats on. We're going to the Capitol. They just did it. They just threw the website, hey, I'm going to go, I'll go too. And they all went, okay? Now, you'll remember at the same time, Occupy Wall Street happened at the same time. That was organized. That was top down, paid for. That was Antifa level, BLM level. They were trying to make it look, oh, look, we're just as organic as the Tea Party. And they weren't, okay? That has to happen again, okay? But even with the Tea Party, there were people that were saying, this is enough, guys. I'm going to go to the Capitol. Who's going with me, right?
Okay,
or I'm going to put my tri-corner hat on. Who's with me? That's coming. No,
okay.
Watch for it.
Let me share this real quick. Hold on. Let me share this real quick. This is a comment from Dwayne, and I want to do this for him because he's our producer. They pulled out all the stops for Rob Axon, Mike Lee, Burgess Owens, Mike Kennedy, and Carolyn Fippen, and Rob still almost lost. Okay, so I want to give Jason, going to give you a couple of minutes. If you guys want to go over 6 o'clock, we can a little bit. I can't go much.
No, I've got something to do. But
so
look, I think
I want your solution, Jason. What do you think we should do?
I don't have the solution. Okay, but what I will tell you is this. The solution is not staying in their system that is designed to do what it has been doing. The answer is not let's get back on the hamster wheel and listen to Rob's new plan, especially knowing all the people that were behind keeping him in there and watching what he did last time. So what is the answer? I don't have the answer, and it's not for me to give everyone the answer. But I tell you one thing, the answer isn't trusting them. It is the people empowering themselves and taking personal accountability. And yes, Trent, a lot of people are not going to fight. In fact, during our founding fathers' time, it was only 2% that were actually in the fight involved. So this is not for everybody. Most people are going to be zombies that just checked out. I mean, this is the eternal war has always been filled with mindless zombies who just don't think, who just want to be left alone. But this is not their fate. This is our fate to decide because we are the ones who are willing to fight. And that's what matters is the small percent who will stand. And the last thing I want is that 2% stuck in trusting the establishment's strategy. And that's what we cannot do. And so I am open and encouraging people to start thinking out of the box. But going back and saying, let's go run for delegate and let's get Bill to run for governor this time and you run for Congress and let's do it all again. And that's just insanity. And I will not sit by quietly and watch, especially as we are getting so close to ground zero with Agenda 2030 right at our doorstep. This is the time, if we do not stand up and get control of this state, it is over for our kids and grandkids. And that is what these guys want. Buy them a little more time, stay quiet a little longer, trust a little longer until the trap is set. And we are at that point where this is the time we should be standing up and saying, stop, not let's just go play their game a little longer.
Okay, Jason, there was 2 to 3% that fought the Revolutionary War. But there was still about 20% that helped them plant their fields, take care of their families when they were gone. So that's what we need to do is we need to focus on getting the people together that can support those that are willing to go stand and take that fight. Such as Jason, such as Trent. Okay.
A lot of us. There's a ton of us. There's a ton of great people, and that's their beauty. Take all these people with all the fire for passion and funnel it into a system we control the ultimate outcome of, and that is the current Republican Party.
Okay, I agree. Trent?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I want to agree with you, Jason. I do. I'm not sure I understand what you meant by that last line. I mean, from looking from the outside, it sounds like you're saying let's start a different party.
No, I'm not saying.
Tell me what you're saying.
I am saying this system they have created is corrupted by design. It is designed to take the energy and passion and funding of everybody who cares and put it into a system that the elite have the ultimate control over, not us. In other words, you guys as delegates chose with all your hearts Phil Lyman, and yet it doesn't matter. You don't have control. Our politicians.
No, that's wrong.
Wrong.
That's wrong. They didn't choose Phil Lyman. Phil lost by 125 votes because Phil lost it because he didn't build a strategy of it. That's fine. But that was lost because of cheating, right? The delegates did their job. Cox didn't even qualify for ballot. We all know it. And the power, and you're right, the people in charge just said, we don't care.
That's my point.
We're going to put him on the ballot and he's going to win. Yeah. So here's what has to happen. You either give up. Trent Staggs, right? Same thing. You either give up on the system or you do something, okay? But here's the point of a strategy. This is the whole point I'm trying to make. A strategy isn't let's go. It's let's go do this.
Well, the first
because
thing is to recognize the alcoholic has a problem.
And B
the
will
first
to
step
see.
is to recognize a problem.
And
that's where we are right now. This is step one.
I think the three of us agree.
I
think we all agree we have a problem, Jason.
I think that is the first step. Is the Republican Party to recognize the Republican Party is broken. That is the step we are at now. Step two is say, okay, now where do we go? You don't just say, you don't skip that step.
Jason, here's the thing. You're upset. I get it. I'm upset. Okay. But when you say the Republican Party needs to see it's broken, okay, the establishment call themselves Republican. The establishment says we're not a sanctuary state, and we are a sanctuary state. Okay. The establishment says, no, we don't have a fentanyl problem, and we do have a fentanyl problem. Okay. So we get it. I think the three of us and everybody listening gets it. Okay. But it isn't just like, well, we need to keep saying what we're saying. No, we need to do something different. And what I'm saying, and I get you don't believe me because you've had a history of people saying like, we're going to do this and then they don't do it. Okay. The people that I'm working with, we're going to do this. It's going to get launched around Labor Day. Okay. I'm giving you a specific date. We're going to launch this effort around Labor Day. Keep your eyes out. There are going to be invitations coming. It's going to be an effort that you haven't seen before, and KMMU is going to be involved in it. Okay. It's going to be something that's measured to make the first step. A leads to B, which leads to C, which leads to D. That's a strategy. Okay. Not just we need to keep talking about it. We're going to have a strategy. We're going to build that out. If people want to have a different strategy, that's fine. But what we're saying is we're going to rally the troops, the people that care, not that you call them zombies. I'm not going to go that.
This is like sometimes I'm the elected grassroots leader, and I don't know. We'll see.
No, I'm nobody. I'm nobody. People.
So if there's something going on, I haven't.
And hopefully you're involved. Hopefully you're involved. But what it's not going to be is a group of people sitting around and saying, damn it, we lost. Because that's all I hear. Damn it, we lost. Well, let's figure out why we lost and let's fix it for the future. Right. It's easy to figure out why we lost. And it's easy to fix it.
Trent, Jason needs to get going.
Trent here is to get people off doing the insanity thing. 10 years, 11 years. It's time for people to say no more on that. New path, new strategy.
And if they want no more, come join us.
Jason, you need to get going. I want to say thank you so much for 2 hours of your time being on Talk with John. Folks, you need to go to wearethepeople.org, correct?
Yeah.
You need to go to his website. Pardon me?
Go to the website. You can get to YouTube from there.
Please tell us where the people can go to so they can see more of Jason Preston.
I mean, the best thing is website. We have all our shows on there, and then you can find Rumble or YouTube or Apple, the different platforms there. But we're just doing one thing, trying to make sure people are hearing a narrative outside of the mainstream narrative, and that's all that Utah's really getting right now.
Jason, when do you go live with new shows?
Yeah,
you do that every
Wednesday.
week. Awesome.
Jason, thank you for your time. Appreciate you being here, brother.
All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate you guys.
Jason is one of those guys that if it's not me, then it's who. If it's not now, I mean, he just does it. He gets in, he does it. Thank you, Jason. We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man.
All right. Have a great one. Take care. All right. That was Jason Preston. I just want to say thank you so much to Jason for joining us today. Trent, since he's gone, I'm going to give you the last word. It's yours.
There is no denying the passion that Jason has. Let me give you, as just a way to wrap up, what happened the very first time I got elected a delegate. I showed up to my delegate meeting because my dad took me. I was 18 and my dad said, "You're coming." And I said, "Okay." And it was a bunch of the gentlemen, older gentlemen in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And all of them had said, and I remember this so distinctly, they all said, "Look, I've done this 100 times. I've been a delegate. I've been a delegate. I've been a delegate." And they said, "Hey, Trent, why don't you be a delegate?" And I didn't know what that meant. I was 18. And I said, "Okay." And that was my baptism by fire. Okay. And I came and I saw democracy work. Okay. Now I turned around and took my son when he turned 18. He said, "Okay." And that's how the caucus works. To me, the caucus isn't just a political system. It's neighbor to neighbor. It's father to son. Okay. It's generations. This is our tradition. This is our legacy. And if we're going to preserve the traditions and the values that we have as a people, that's how we do it. It happens father to son, mother to daughter, neighbor to neighbor, okay? Throughout the generations down. That's why the caucus system is so important. And that's why states that have moved away from the caucus system are all trying to get it back. But once you lose it, you're not getting it back, okay? Those powers that are entrenched don't want it back. You're never getting it back. We are at a point right now where they're trying to take it away. They're trying to take it away from us forever, which will not only allow massive influxes of money. The only people that get elected, Jason's right, are the people that have the money, that have the backing, okay? But it also will determine our values because the people getting elected are the ones that are going to say what is and what isn't. Are we a sanctuary state? Yeah, we are. But you can't get the governor to say it. You can't get KSL, Deseret News, or the Salt Lake Tribune to report it, okay? Do we have a massive illegal immigrant problem in the state? Yeah, I just posted today a map of the country with all the states and what they're doing to help ICE do mass deportations. And Utah's doing nothing. Nothing. And that's because there are politicians that weren't elected by us that are deciding we're not a sanctuary state, I'm doing nothing. That they have some sort of incentive to move away from the Trump administration, to move away from ICE and just let the problem fester, okay? That keeps happening unless we entrench and sustain the caucus system, which is the effort that's going to be happening. It's going to get launched this September. More details to come. This will be like nothing you've ever seen before. I totally get the naysayers, the people that have looked politicians in the eye and been promised with all the sincerity that a politician can muster to have that person turn around and not just lie, but stab them in the back. Okay? I understand the frustration that Jason has, that a lot of people have. Okay? But I'm not asking them to trust a politician. I'm not asking them to trust me. Okay? There is an effort underway. KMMU is going to be a part of it, a big part of it, to make sure that we can establish, hopefully forever, the caucus system. And when I say that, you ought to hear in your mind, establish your voice and your son's voice and your daughter's voice and your grandchildren's voice forever. That's what this effort is, okay? It's to retake and fix a party and a movement that has been taken from us, usurped from us, okay, by money and outside interests. It can be done. I'm incredibly hopeful. There are bright days ahead, okay? There are terrible, dark things happening in this state, but there is only darkness to the degree that there is light. So if you're light, come with us and fight the darkness, and we will win.
Trent, I'm going to let you leave with that statement, or we'll end it pretty much with that statement, with the exception of, I'm going to give this from Dwayne. He said, if not me, who? If not now, when? Me now. That's from, and then the next statement from Dwayne, who's our great producer, folks. This was a great debate. Both Jason and Trent are correct. Strategies and tactics, strategic nuclear weapons destroy an entire country. Tactical nuclear weapons destroy cities. We need both. All right, folks, this has been Talk with John here on KMMU. We will be back next Tuesday. I'll probably have David Pine on, but I'm really looking forward. I'm really grateful, and I was really looking forward to this conversation with both me and Jason to begin with, and then with Trent, Jason, and with Trent and Jason. I was really looking forward to that. It lived up to everything. Please, folks, please go to kmmu.org. Please go to our X channel, YouTube and Rumble, and subscribe and like and share, because this one, folks, this one was worth listening to. We need lots of people. We need tens of thousands of likes and views on this one because of what Jason said, and then the great conversation we had with Trent and Jason. Trent, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, sir.